and welcome to the Shipley Learn to Win series of webinars. Today's topic is about bidding to the EU. The EU is a great common market. I've seen it for the first hand. Regardless of what the politics is and people talk about Brexit, I actually saw the benefits of the EU. Absolutely brilliant. It's a huge market. It's a regulated market. So today's speaker is Dakiana Calistru. She's a practitioner of proposals and bidding to the EU and also to commercial organizations. Dakiana helps Microsoft to bid to the EU and also commercial clients. Dakiana also presented at the inaugural Bid and Proposal Conference in Amsterdam last year. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dakiana. Over to you, Dakiana.
Very nice. Thank you, Sam. And thank you everyone joining and attending this session. My name is Dakiana. I work as a proposal manager with Shipley, currently based in Bucharest, Romania. Throughout this webinar, I would appreciate if you could mute yourself and use the chat facility to share feedback and questions. And of course, you can activate the caption feature of Teams if that's needed. We will have a question session at the end of my presentation, and I'll happily try and answer any curiosity you may have on this matter. Now, there's a long history behind the intentions of the European Union, and little time for me to go through it right now. So fundamentally, the EU has been settled as an economic organization following the Second World War and a time of great challenges for the European countries. Until 2020, there have been 28 members of the Union, with Romania joining the group in 2007. And now, with UK being the first country to leave the EU, we are down to 27 countries striving for common policies and processes. The reason I chose this topic for today, and please bear in mind that I'm only scratching the surface, is to show not only the progress made in bringing the legislation and nations together, but how technology has been helping this forum evolve under healthy, inclusive and strategic directives. Our topics for the day will cover the foundations of procurement in the European Union, the principles and rules that derive from that. I will quickly run through the actual bidding process, and we will close the session with some of the tools that help bidders in Europe win tenders and shape their own and their community's future. The general idea on European Union public procurement is that there are many stringent regulations to guide the process, and that is correct. But ultimately, the foundations of these rules are actually the EU guiding principles of transparency, competition, non-discrimination, and proportionality. They are, yes, indeed, general EU principles, you may say, not procurement specific, but at every step of the procurement process, you as a buyer, or in our cases as proposal management and procurement specialists, we should assess how well we have been applying these principles, because it is not always a case of black and white. So let's consider an unsuccessful bidder who turns to court, arguing that an EU organization has been favoring the winning supplier. In such a case, you as a procurement professional or your company will have to prove that you have adhered to the guiding principles, and the more proof you have, the better are the chances that a judge will rule in your favor. Now, let's think of the consequences of such a complaint. If found guilty, the bidding organization has to pay a penalty. It's bad. And it gets worse because this will put the project on hold depending on the urgency and the importance of the purchase, and it will definitely impact your business. And let me now explain the guiding principles of transparency, competition, non-discrimination, and proportionality in detail. Transparency has only recently emerged as a principle in its own right, although it is probably better to think of it as a tool to be used to achieve other objectives. For example, publication and accessibility of the legislation provides clarity and certainty for all stakeholders and enables contracting authorities and economic operators to be aware of the rules of the game. Requirements of advertising guarantee transparency in the discovery process. Publicizing in advance the technical specifications and the selection and award criteria will permit stakeholders to check that these are fair and non-discriminatory. Recording and reporting requirements ensures that the actions of the contracting authorities may be verified when appropriate. The latter objectives are also a fundamental aspect of accountability, as in holding procurement officers accountable for their decisions and actions. Accountability is also often an explicit objective of national procurement systems, and the transparency provisions reinforce this accountability. Now, competition. From an economic perspective, competition operates as a discovery procedure by allowing different economic operators to communicate the prices at which goods and services will be available on the market. These prices act as guideposts and reflect the demand and supply conditions at any given moment. They also reflect the differences in quality and in terms and conditions of sales of different products available. This is why advertising is so important. Advertising guarantees the widest possible publicity and competition, enabling economic operators from all over the community to participate, thus ensuring the greatest possible choice. The concepts of equal treatment and non-discrimination are not the same. In general terms, all procurement legislation will seek to maintain equality between economic operators. In the European context, however, that equality will also be based on nationality. Equal treatment is a concept that generally requires identical situations to be treated in the same way, or different situations not to be treated in the same way, and it requires the identical treatment of identical people. In a sense, it implies that contracting authorities will not take into account the different abilities or difficulties faced by individual economic operators, but will judge them purely on the results of their efforts, on the basis of the intent of the tenders they submit. In the European context, the concept of equal treatment requires yet another definition, since in this context, the concept of equality is an addition based on nationality or on the origin of goods, such that all economic operators of the community and all bids, including goods of community origin, must be treated equally. This is the principle of non-discrimination. Proportionality, or value for money. This is a key economic driver underlying procurement processes, and it's based on the need to ensure that all purchasing represent value for money. The directives do not specifically address this issue, but it is important not to lose sight of the need to ensure that value for money is one of the main outcomes of the procurement process. The term value for money means that optimum combination between various cost-related and non-cost-related factors that together meet the contracting authority's requirements. Now, what are the EU public procurement rules? These key rules mean an open and fair process. Now, tender procedures cannot discriminate against any enterprise on the grounds of registration in another EU member state. This means that regardless of which European country an organization is based, you or your company are eligible to bid for work in any other EU member state. State specification of order goods, services, and construction work cannot contain specific label, trademarks, or patents. The potential supplier will determine in their offer what specific solutions are most beneficial. A contracting authority cannot refuse to accept supplements to documents, including certificates and diplomas issued in another EU member state. What it means in practice is that the university diploma that was issued in Italy will be recognized when you bid for a contract in France. Additionally, all tender information must be made available to every interested entrepreneur, regardless of the company's country of registration. These EU procurement rules apply on a financial basis. The threshold value of a given contract must exceed a certain value for the procurement rules to apply. A vast majority of supplies and services contracts require a full application of these rules for contracts above 134,000 euros commissioned by the central government authorities, or above 277,000 euros for sub-central authorities. The contract thresholds are different for contracts in specific areas, such as defense, construction, water and energy, and a few others. These specific sectors are regulated by a separate set of rules due to their importance. For provision of crucial public services or for tenders of lower value, however, national rules would apply, but nevertheless, the general principles of the EU have to be respected. Certain services can be awarded without the application of these rules. A number of legal services, public loans, public passenger transport by rails or metro. These are additional contracts. There are additional contracts that are related to health or culture services where there will be a tender through a simplified procedure, meaning that the rules would only apply to contracts above 750,000 euros. Similar with concessions contracts, used as a form of private-public partnership and related to vital sectors of the economy and affecting the quality of life for all EU citizens. On a daily basis, many member states use concessions to develop large infrastructure projects in areas where Europe's needs remain considerable. Regardless of the sector, public contracts can be a great business opportunity. The procurement teams and businesses just need to learn about how to monitor these opportunities and bid for them. Every year, over 200,000 public administration bodies in the European Union commission opportunities worth more than 400 million euros. The contracts can be for anything, starting with supplies of printing services to building schools facilities or advisory policy support. In 2016, the EU adopted a revised set of procurement policies and tools, meaning less paperwork, shorter deadlines, and a widespread use of digital communication tools. This system has been designed to achieve a procurement market that is competitive, open, and well regulated, all these being essential to put public funds in use. The EU procurement organisms have introduced a set of digital communication tools, and the administrative dimension of the process has become much quicker, less costly, and less bureaucratic, as such enabling suppliers to compete more effectively. For example, at the start of the tendering process, the suitability, financial status, and abilities of each bidder are provided with a self-declaration instead of the full documentary evidence. The European Single Procurement Document, also called a business passport for companies, is a tool introduced to make the tendering process more manageable. ESPD is available in all European Union languages and can be used as a preliminary evidence of fulfillment of all requirements. ESPD is integrated with eCertis, which is a mapping tool used to identify and compare the certificates required in public procurement, such as those related to insolvency, conflicts of interest, environmental management standards, and many others. eCertis would also help you find out what certificates are required by public authorities in the country where one has identified a suitable business opportunity. At the end of the tendering process, it is only the winning bidder who needs to provide the full documentary evidence. This evidence can either be provided directly by the winning bidder, or the contracting authority can get the information directly from the national database if the bidder indicates the relevant database in their ESPD. Next, the procurement process dilutes the pressure on the financial situation of bidders. For example, the required annual turnover should not be higher than twice the contract value. Public authorities across the EU are encouraged to commission tenders in small portions called lots. Large contracts would often be divided into smaller portions, so to allow participation of smaller companies. Now, this section will give you an overview of the available tools implemented and managed by the European Union organisms. We'll go through some of the main tools that allow businesses in the EU to better find suitable opportunities, conditions of qualification, and legislation that supports and guides them, and ultimately, the tools that help bidders in the EU stay on track with forecast and bid management. The European Union has developed an online tool that makes sure that all information is shared on a regular basis. It's called TED. Tenders Electronic Daily would help bidders search for opportunities based on sector and country, and as a client, you can browse, search and save your searches, as well as subscribe for free email notifications. This service is entirely free of charge. 520,000 procurement notices are announced via TED every year, and this includes 210,000 calls for tenders worth approximately 420 billion euros. And all these notices are available in the 20 European languages. The vast majority of notices published by TED come from EU member states, nearly 97% of all notices. Some would come through central EU institutions or the European Economic Area countries. The bidders can also access these opportunities. All it takes is a quick registration through ECAS. More than that, one can also keep up with the notices via Twitter. The tendering process is not very complex. It's actually quite straightforward. The sooner a bidder finds out about an opportunity, the more time it has to define the bidding strategy. Although not obliged to do so, public authorities are encouraged to hold early market engagement consultations with the private sector. The results of these consultations can feed into the process of designing the scope of some contracts, including technical specifications. It would typically take place at the very early stage, prior to the forecast being published. More often, however, the tendering process starts with publication of a prior information notice, which provides suppliers with as much information as possible at this early stage. It is an optional step for the authorities, although it happens quite often. The call for expressions of interest, or EOI, will result in a short list of economic operators invited to submit their offer. Here, the bidder is expected to showcase their technical capacity to deliver certain services or supplies in order to be shortlisted. When a contract...
Dakiana, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you. Could you speak a little bit nearer the mic? Somebody has said there's a bit of echo. Sorry to trouble you.
Okay. Sure, absolutely. Thank you. All right. Here, the bidder is expected to showcase their technical capacity to deliver certain services or supplies in order to be shortlisted. When a contract notice is published via TED, the bidders will know exactly what the client expectations are and what it means reviewing the tender documentation. The following elements should receive special attention to determine your eligibility and how your enterprise can position itself against other bidders. For example, there are a number of grounds for the exclusion of suppliers based on evidence of unsuitability, and the reasons can include insolvency, criminal records, failing their tax duties, many others. One tool that supports businesses in these areas of the qualification is the ESPD tool. And next, I'll show you a short video that teaches how ESPD works in this context.
Marco owns a small furniture company in Italy. He sells to public buyers like schools or local government offices in the surrounding area. Marco would like to sell his furniture to schools in other EU countries, but he is put off by the complicated bidding requirements across different countries and regions. For each new tender, Marco must spend a lot of time on paperwork proving that his company qualifies for bidding. Time that could be spent working on the actual offer. One day, Marco's friend Lucia tells him about the new European Single Procurement Document, or ESPD. The ESPD replaces all the documentation usually needed for a company to prove that it meets the requirements to participate in a tender anywhere in the EU. It only needs to be filled in once and can be reused for future tenders. Lucia opens the EU's Tenders Electronic Daily Platform, or TED for short. She finds a tender for Marco from a Finnish public authority looking to buy furniture for schools in Helsinki. The next morning, Marco takes a few minutes to create his electronic ESPD file. He indicates that his company fulfills all the selection criteria and qualifies for the tender. No more evidence needs to be provided at this stage, and Marco can focus on the technical side of his bid. Once ready, he submits the ESPD and the rest of his bid through an e-procurement platform. Marco's offer is judged as the winner by the authorities in Finland. He even received extra points for the use of green technologies. Marco is happy about how easily the ESPD allowed him to provide the necessary information. The Finnish public authority is happy to get good value for money on the supply of new furniture for schools. The ESPD is just one part of wide-ranging European public procurement reform that applies from April 2016. It simplifies cross-border procurement, cuts down on paperwork, and helps provide access to new opportunities for businesses of all sizes. For more information, see our website.
Back. In addition to the basic qualification criteria, which certifications, proofs of insurance, and so on, the bidders would be limited by financial requirements as well. And as mentioned previously, the required turnover should not normally exceed twice the value of the contract. On top of that, bidders should know what is the tender procedure. And most often, it's a limited one, giving you between 36 and 52 days to prepare your offer. Procurement in the water, energy, and postal services might include a negotiation procedure directly to a limited number of potential suppliers. Other variations often apply to large infrastructure contracts. Instead, the bidders would receive all the required detail, including timelines, scope, of course, and the needed experience required. In order to demonstrate such experience, bidders might want to consider teaming up with another enterprise, so to strengthen their ability to deliver the contract, and here is where the Enterprise Europe Network comes into play. Bidders can use EEN to find new business partners and form a consortium. For example, a partner enterprise can help a bidder cover specific areas of the contract in which the bidder experience is not very strong. It is also a good practice to demonstrate a bidder experience against the technical specifications, showcasing your capacity and experience delivering similar services, works, or supplies. This would be a key element of the tender proposal. The more specific the examples, the better demonstrating. The value for money is also a good practice, including an assessment of the price-quality ratio, which can include social and environment requirements provided. In relation to the tender, bidders would want to demonstrate that they can provide innovative solutions sustainable through the total life cycle of the contract. The information system for public procurement. This is also one of the critical tools that bidders can use through a sign-up, and they can learn about tender documentation requirements. Now that a bidder has submitted their tender, they'll be obviously keeping their fingers crossed to be successful. Should one be successful, there is usually a 10 to 15 days standstill period between the point when the decision of the award of the contract is made and communicated and the signature of the contract. This allows the supplier to seek an effective review of the contract authority's decision, and the bidder can put through a request to receive some feedback. The award decision would contain the results of the procedure and is therefore applicable whatever the outcome. Contract awarded, no contract awarded, cancellation of the procedure. In addition, the list of contracts concluded in the previous year under certain value thresholds foreseen in the public procurement directives and for which specific contract award notices have not been published, as well as information concerning specific contracts made by Eurostat in the previous year against framework contracts, will all be made available to the financial transparency system. Remember, there are a number of online resources that all bidders can consult to find out about details specific to their respective business areas and to the public procurement processes. You can consult TRIS, Technical Regulation Information System for national technical regulations in specific sectors, or COSING for information on cosmetic substances and ingredients, Certider and CPDS, and many others, depending on each area of activity of interest. There are many other sources of guidance on how to effectively bid for contracts published by national authorities, as well as central EU institutions, and all sources can easily be found online. And I will also make myself available if any of you need additional information. But meanwhile, thank you for your time and attention. And please share your questions, curiosities, and I'll do my best to answer in the following moments.
Dakiana, thank you very much for that excellent presentation.
Absolutely.
Any questions could be put on the chat, and while we are waiting for questions to come on the chat, or anyone can put your hands up and you could ask for the questions there. So while we're waiting for that, one question that has come up: what happens with the UK public tenders now that they're no longer part of the EU?
So the UK public tenders would not be subject. So they've been subject to the same directions as they've been so far with ESPD and TED and CMAP and the rest of the tools and portals. But starting from the 1st of January 2021, they're no longer required to go through these portals or share information in this manner. So I think the European Union has established a new set of economic rules to go with the UK, and they will probably change the information, the information portals that they will use further on. But I've had a deal I've had a public sector deal lately, and I know that they're still working with a unique public procurement document, so something similar to ESPD, which has quite an impressive number of questions.
That's great, thank you. One other question that was put across before was, how can the bidder ask for more information once the tenders have been listed in the portal, and who can they contact?
Given that TED is a very interactive portal, all the bidders can use TED and just submit questions, requirements, additional clarification, and even complaints via this portal. So the TED, Tender Electronic Daily, that's the actual place to go in case curiosities or clarifications are needed.
Okay. Then any other questions from any of the participants? I did have one more here.
Yes.
Can countries in Europe, but outside the EU, bid for EU contracts?
This would be discussed from country to country, because there are treaties between European Union and economic European area countries. So those countries are still in Europe, but not part of the EU. So each country would have its own directives. They would have their own capacity and their own terms and conditions to apply to. But the European Union wants to impose the same principles as within to the other countries as well. So to obviously have a fair competition environment and keep price quality balance in place.
Okay, that's brilliant. And I believe Falguni Das is typing something there. It's still not come through yet. Do you want to speak up and ask your question, Falguni?
Thanks, Sam. Talking after a long time, seeing you as well.
Yeah, nice to hear your voice.
Hey, Darshan, I need some clarity. So I come from a value design team, so I just need a clarity. So any list where we can see a vendor needs to be compliant of certain things before going for any public deals or any public bidding system? Like GDPR or maybe financial compliance that needs to be achieved before they go for a bidding process.
So if you're talking about general laws and general legislation that would apply, I think you can go on CMAP, SIMAP. That would be the general requirements discussion. And if they're specific to areas, particular areas, sectors, for example, the moment if there's a bid already outside, you can visit TED for that. So those will be very specific requirements. So in forecasting, okay, so TED would be one. CMAP would be just a general description of requirements for which company each companies need to apply to or are obliged to have in place before submitting any tender for the European Union. So CMAP would be.
All right, we'll browse through it. Maybe have questions later on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Falguni. Any other questions?
I'm
I have
so
one
sorry
last question. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry that the cartoon I was playing on ESPD didn't work, so I'll share the link here. Maybe some of you are curious.
If you want, I can share it. I can share my screen and play it.
If
Yeah, why
everyone,
don't you do that, Savio?
Okay.
I don't know if we have time for the full video, but it's a very good example. Oh, we don't have sound.
Savio, you need
No
to
sound?
share your sound.
No sound. No sound.
Oh,
Okay, just put that in the link for everyone and,
Sure.
and send that across. Girish, you're typing a question there. Why don't you ask the question directly?
Yes, please. Oh, he changed his mind.
Okay. So one last question. Typically, before anyone bids and the tender comes out, in the capture phase, what should
Mhm.
anyone do in terms of positioning themselves long before getting themselves known to EU buyers?
But I think they should, any potential bidder should explore the ESPD document, create themselves this framework of contracting, because basically this will be the master agreement between any bidder and the European Union organism. So they all refer to that particular database, and then everything that's specific to your area of bidding or expertise, that goes separately related to that particular bid. But creating your entry in ESPD is the first step to simplify your entire bidding procedure with the EU. Otherwise, it's a lengthy process. There's a lot of documents in there. Contracting also would imply an army of people to get together and review those terms. But if you have this in place, so you're aware of everything that comes under terms and conditions and requirements as a bidder from you, if you have that, from forehand, then things would go very much easier.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Tatiana, thank you so much for taking time with your busy schedule. I know you guys have got a lot of deals going on right now. I wish you all the very best and a big thank you for you joining. Thanks. And thank you to all our participants taking time of your busy schedule in the afternoon. All the very best and happy bidding. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you.